Tonight, latest new Q post. Is the deep state trying to frame the Q board for the latest Southwest Airlines emergency landing that ended with one dead? Hi, I'm Craig and welcome to Just Informed Talk. For those of you who don't know, I start off each and every one of these episodes by thanking each and every one of my subscribers because truly, without you guys, this channel would not be possible. So if you have not hit the subscribe button, please come here to this landing page. Click the big red subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications. That way you'll be notified as soon as these videos get posted, because as soon as information is made available to me, I make it available to you. Now let's jump right into the Q board. Okay, so this is where we left off here, and there was a lot that we had to go over. Some things are being made more clear now. Obviously, we had the incident that happened today with a Southwest Airlines plane.
And I'm the chairman of the National Transportation Safety Board.
We had a plane that actually had to make an emergency landing after one of the engines blew up and sent shrapnel through the airplane into the window that actually ended up blowing the window out, sucking a passenger halfway out of that window, but the other passengers were able to pull that other passenger back in. Unfortunately, that passenger is said to have passed, and we actually have an identity on that passenger, which definitely will deserve more look after we read what Q posts here to the Q board. But talking about what we were seeing before, he was saying, think Bangladeshi currency and DEFCON. He was giving us direct prior knowledge of something that was about to happen. And it says direct, and that's certainly something to be looked at as far as what we are getting into here. Now, let's look at what it actually is saying in the Q post here. So an AN0N post, the previous post that we saw down here from April 12th, where we hear Q tell us in response to an AN0N posting, Q, can you double confirm? The number 17 was regarding the jerseys. When I asked yesterday for confirmation, AN0Ns are bringing up every other 17 under the sun, Keck. You're right. So what the basically talking about there is that Q had made a mention before this saying, thank you, Alan. Welcome aboard, freedom, number 17, right? And then we went up to here, night later, where he says, Alan, welcome aboard plane 17Q. Now, the association was generally made that it was Alan Dershowitz being referred to. There's a flight log from Jeffrey Epstein's plane rides that he gave to everyone, you know, where it's listed that Bill Clinton took 23 or so flights with Jeffrey Epstein, but Alan Dershowitz is actually listed as a passenger going to Canada from the United States, and it was on November 17th of 2005, I believe. Now, that is just what I believe they were talking about previously, and it's talking about how Alan Dershowitz is coming on board. A lot of people have made the contention basically that he's not involved with the pedophilia side, that he was merely a legal representation for Jeffrey Epstein, which, if is true, ultimately would make sense. He is a great lawyer who would probably be retained by one of the richest people in the country. But what the implication of what Q is saying is that Alan Dershowitz was brought on board by the president and Q in order to help us in our efforts to uncover the evil that is going on that island with the temple and the temple to Moloch, the owl, and the underground complex where it's said to have human sacrifice and devil worshiping, Luciferianism and global elite ritualism going on beneath the surface there. So if that turns out to be the case, that is what it is. But this is going back to what Q posted today, is basically saying they're posting that, and then it's in response, it's saying, we are being set up. This is Q. Threat, past booms, Texas bombs, new booms, plane crash plus plane 17 drop. These people are sick. Attempt to prevent drops awakening. Conspiracy, coincidence, response coming, Q. Okay, so they're laying it out very plain and clear here. He's saying that when we had before the Texas bombings. And if you guys want to go back, actually, I have a great source of evidence that you guys can go if you guys want to hear more about what's going on with the Texas bombings. But you can watch this video here where it's the QAnon, the Texas bombs, talking about what Q said on that day. And if you guys want to get into that, please, by all means, go back and watch that, and you'll learn a little bit about what was going on that day in those Q posts that Q's referring back to now. But Q's saying the new booms, which to understand all this, you have to understand that we'll leave it at this, that the booms are related because they were used to frame Q. Q was putting up the word boom a lot, and it was referring to different people who are being taken down, targets being taken out, facilities being hit, institutions being raided, certain other things going on, people being replaced inside of the White House and other federal agencies. But they hijacked that. What the globalists did is they took the booms that we're using here, and then they turned it to have some nut job down in Texas who was probably triggered, probably on psychotropic drugs. This is all speculation, but of course it's all possible, that he was triggered by something, who knows what, some outside force in his mind made him want to go do these awful crimes that he ended up committing, but that ended up being trying to be tagged to QAnon. And actually, there's a report that Q points to talking about in previous video, if you guys want to go back and watch it, where Q is actually pointed to as being responsible or being under investigation by the FBI because of the connections of having bombs going off and then him on this secret board saying boom a lot. Of course, that is just complete nonsense and crazy, but it is just fascinating that Q even points out sometimes that when we get things right, we don't get investigated, but then when they try to frame us, the FBI is more than happy to look into it. And this is talking about the QAnon initiative, of course. And we have the new booms going to be this plane crash. So how is this plane crash going to be tied in? Well, it's just coming out now that the person who was killed is actually an interesting person. She was actually the vice president for a Wells Fargo bank in Albuquerque. And she was on that plane coming back from a trip to New York, a business trip, I believe, where she actually, or either going to or coming back from a business trip. And when that engine exploded, it sent that shrapnel right through that window and ended up taking her life. So obviously we'll pray for her and her family, and we wish them the best in this tough time. But this is very interesting how it's being confirmed right now that she was a employee of Wells Fargo, a high-ranking one at that. And was this whole plane meant to go down? Was this meant to be a much larger scale false flag than it ended up being? We don't know, but what we do know is that if they're going to try to take this and somehow connect it to Q, they're going to need some pretty darn good evidence, because there's not much out there I can see that could even remotely tie what's going on here on the Q boards to what just happened in that plane. Other than the fact that if you had no idea of anything about Q, you wouldn't understand what Q was referring to when he said plane and Allen and welcome aboard. But we'll have to wait and see how that all works itself out. So you guys definitely let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll go over that hopefully coming up in the future here. Now, the next one we're going to get into is Q responding to his own post here, where he just merely says strike package 111V-B. So obviously this is some kind of future proves passage scenario where we're going to actually have to wait and see what the strike package is. This would probably be the response that Q is referring to having been coming from this. So we'll see what 111VB actually ends up meaning, but it could mean a multitude of things as of right now. We'll have to give the news a day or two to kind of let us know exactly what it is, and I'm sure almost without a doubt it will end up becoming a proof of Q that will show us some kind of foreknowledge of an event that is upcoming. Now, a lot of people wanted to play around with the time stamp here on this one right here. So we're just going to go back for a second to the previous one from this morning. We talked about it, and it was the BDT and DEF CON and direct Q. So what people thought was interesting was that if you look at the original timestamp on this, it was from 4/17/18, so April 17, 2018 at 5/18/17. Okay, so a lot of people, I went back, and what was going on the May 18th, 2017, there was not a whole lot. Now, this is just looking at it like kind of a mirror reflection of date to date, but there wasn't a whole lot going on. It was kind of the genesis, the beginning of the Comey leaking of his documents after being fired to the to his college buddy, who then leaked them to the press, talking about how Trump said he hoped he could drop the Flynn thing, so on. And it also went back to a couple stories about how Syria was being looked into by the Israelis. I'm not sure. They were massing on the border, waiting to get in there and get ready with the war. But if you look at this, and people have played around with it and said, okay, well, is it talking about maybe 5/17/18? So May 17th, is that going to be some important date? Or is there another way to read this that we have not seen yet? That's just something that people are playing with. Other people had it as 4/17/18 or 4/18. I don't know how they got these numbers, but, or I'm sorry, 4/17/18, excuse me. It was close enough, but I'm sorry. I lost myself there for a second. But no, you can see, obviously, it's something to be looked at. Who knows what it actually could be. But that's pretty much it for those. We have a little bit more to get into if we want to talk about some things that I thought were interesting. First, it's coming out, I believe, now. I haven't independently confirmed this yet, but I think it's fairly accurate in talking about how over Easter weekend, the CIA chief, Mike Pompeo, at the time now head of, or Secretary of State, met with Kim Jong-un on behalf of Trump. That, if true, is very fascinating. I've not independently confirmed that yet, but it is certainly an interesting story if true. Next one is talking about a Trump tweet. So Trump's had a few interesting tweets lately that are definitely that would definitely warrant taking a look at. Now, first he has this one here where it says, Pastor Andrew Brunson, a fine gentleman and Christian leader in the United States, is on trial and being persecuted in Turkey for no reason. They call him a spy, but I am more of a spy than he is. Hopefully he will be allowed to come home to his beautiful family where he belongs. Now, that in and of itself is crazy to hear Trump talk about how he's more of a spy than another person. But it makes sense. And a lot of people pointed this and said, is he basically telling us that he's Q because his involvement in this covert military intelligence operation would direct us to believe that obviously he is a spy, basically, on the behalf of the American people working against the deep state. Or there's another set of people who look at what we can see here with capitalization. They always look at these things, but is there any specific reason why the word spy is capitalized and said twice? SS as in Secret Service, or something else? That would be an interesting take on it, but definitely something to be looked at. And this was today. This was a tweet from Trump today. Now, another one that came out today talking about how Trump says this: so many people are seeing the benefits of the tax cut bill. Everyone is talking. Really nice to see. And is that another message? Now, this is a part of the what we were talking about earlier regarding the fact that Q points out here the four booms. And were these all hidden messages within Trump's tweets that were being told to us? Everyone is talking. Trump, he says, I am more of a spy. And everyone is talking. Is that definitely means something else besides just talking about tax cuts? I think he's talking about everyone has flipped and turned stateside evidence because they are being put the screws toward in order to extrapolate to extract their confession in whatever crime they've been accused of or they're being interrogated for. So he's basically giving us a little wink wink that everyone is talking, and it is certainly something to be very positively taken. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is just something that we have to keep covering because it's like one of those it's the story that never ends. That's basically what this is. And today we had Stormy Daniel on The View. Now, you guys know my thoughts on this whore. That's what she is. I don't say that with any malintent or visceral disdain, other than that, that's her choice, and she has chosen to live the life of sin and promiscuity outside of God, obviously. But I don't even profess to know her personal relationship to God, but I can tell you this, that doing the things she does is not helping her case in my view. So, speaking of her being on The View, no pun intended, but she's coming out now and making these crazy accusations. I mean, I didn't watch this. I watched the highlight reel of it because I couldn't stand watching more than 10 minutes of this woman speak after watching that 60 Minutes interview where her pupils were saucers and she was basically high out of her mind on some kind of drug, probably cocaine, but no one can be sure. Now, she's sitting here with her scummy scumbag lawyer, snake in the grass, the worst kind of evil, chagrin look you could ever imagine, lawyer that she has, who is talking about, he's making these open threats about Cohen. He's like, Cohen, is he going to take one for Trump, or is he going to risk going to jail for a minimum of 10 years? And all these cackling jackals on The View are just even Meghan McCain, her father, the one we shall not name, these evil excuse me, I almost cursed there, his evil butt, they all just basically are just a pack of hyenas, and they're just pouncing on the dead story corpse that is this Stormy Daniels, because sex sells, and they're morally bankrupt, and they don't have a soul to really bargain with anymore because they've sold it already. So they get on there and they listen to this woman, and she goes on, and the lawyer's making the threats to Michael Cohen, telling him not to be faithful to Trump, and they're bragging about how the lawyer brags about how he's friends with the judge, first of all. Now, of course, it wasn't the judge who's told the FBI to go raid the Trump's lawyer, although she probably was the one who signed off on it, I'd imagine. And but regardless, he's sitting there talking about how the lawyer's his friend, and she said that, they were totally right, and how he feels so vindicated. And, we went over this in the last episode of who the lawyer is. And the lawyer's name is, hold on. Yeah, excuse me. The judge's name is Kimba Wood, and she's the one officiating over this. And she's made basically what you could tantamount to saying just overriding the Constitution and putting the Fourth Amendment into the dirt, putting the nail in that coffin. And you obviously have here the conflict for the fact that the woman who is presiding over the President of the United States lawyer's confidential attorney-client privilege information is actually the one who officiated George Soros's wedding. See, isn't this a wonderful, terrible world? No, this is sick. This is disgusting. This is beyond the scope of what should ever be acceptable in any society. And but what we're getting at here is that they're on The View, and they're talking about how it's just, the judge is my friend. This is Stormy's lawyer talking. The judge is my friend, and she knows we're right. And now what the judge has ordered is that all of that information from the private attorney-client privilege stuff is going to go into federal databases that are accessible across the board in the federal agencies. And I'm sure they won't leak that. I'm sure it's not going to be used for the 2018 and 2020 elections as all the dirt you'll ever need on Trump. You can just go in the federal database and search it and pull it right out because it's in federal records now, because there is no such thing as attorney-client privilege, and there is no such thing as the Fourth Amendment, and there is no such thing as constitutional liberties or rights, and there is no such thing as a fair and balanced justice system, and there is no such thing as blind justice. No. It's all the George Soros's judges, marriage judges' decision to basically throw the Constitution in the garbage and let the FBI become criminal organization like the mafia, and let the DOJ be the soft arm of the law that just basically is engaged in crony capitalism and persecuting anyone who is against the criminal cabal that exists inside of it. I mean, that's where we're coming. That's where we've come to. Oh, and then the best part was they released a sketch of, or Stormy Daniels released a sketch of the guy that she said came and threatened her, quote unquote, for telling about Trump and everything, and threatened her to stay away from Trump, right? And then it turns out it looks like her boyfriend. So this lady is so stupid. She has such a low IQ that she actually goes in there and can't. She draws a blank. She's probably sitting there with the sketch artist going, well, they're like, well, what did he look like, ma'am? And he's like, who can I think of that's evil? Who I know their face and can describe so that it's like real. And then she just basically describes her ex-husband. Because she has she's Maxine stupid. I mean, this says it all. She's Maxine Waters stupid. That's the level of intellect we're dealing with here. We're dealing with the level of intellect of a very, very clever child, in the 8 to 10-year-old range. That's what we're dealing with in Stormy Daniels. And I feel bad for her. If you have that low of an intellect and that low of an IQ, you actually probably suffer greatly. It probably is why she's been caused to do porn and ends up in this terrible situation that she's found herself in, where she's sitting on The View, like recounting to the women of The View, well, I didn't do this for the notoriety or to get the publicity stunt. But then she's like, in the same voice, she's like, yeah, but my bookings are through the roof and I'm doing work all the time now. And it's like, yeah, you were a failing porn star, and then your big claim to fame is that you had an affair, allegedly, that you probably lied about, it seems like, given your flip-flopping and your complete contradiction of your own testimony in both directions. But now you're using that to get to with the president to get to notoriety, right? Okay, so that's what this world's come to, and that's the level that we have sunk to. So I hope that everyone on the left is happy. I hope that they enjoy watching the complete deterioration of our republic. It's sad. I pray for these lost and sinful souls who don't have any idea about what is good and what is true, and they obviously don't have a strong connection to the Lord our God. But that's going to be it for this episode. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. Now, if you're interested in finding a way to support the channel, the easiest way you can do it is, if you have not clicked the subscribe button, please come here to this landing page, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications. That's the easiest way you can support us. The second easiest way to support, which I love, is my favorite, is go down, leave me your comments. I want to hear your thoughts, your insights, your theories. Everything you can think of that you can contribute is welcome here. We have basically, like I say, our own QAnon research board at the end of each one of these videos. So please go down there, talk to each other. I like to go and read through them. It's what I love doing. It's one of my favorite pastimes now, is reading through your comments and seeing what you guys have to say so we can continue to develop a voice here together. But that's certainly the second best way you can help, and I really appreciate it and really enjoy that. And if you're looking for another way to contribute, if you want to keep this channel going, I really need your help. Come over here to patreon.com. That's patreon.com. You can search Just Informed Talk. You'll come here to this landing page. Go ahead and click the big red button here to become a patron. And you can come check out my rewards and my goal. And you can get a chance to have an email correspondence. You can become a featured Patreon patron. And you can earn a chance to get a Just Informed Talk Limited Edition is Trump QAnon t-shirt. So that's a cool thing that you can get involved with. But I thank you all in advance for coming here and checking this out. And truly, I need all the help I can get to keep this channel going. So thank you to each and every one of my patrons who have already come here and joined and decided to help this channel out, because you guys are obviously what make this whole channel possible. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Now, getting into what we're going to talk about here, which is the most important thing, and that's we're going to talk about how does the Lord fit into this equation. Because each one of these posts puts us in a new place, a new angle of perspective, and it always makes us rethink things that we're going through in our own lives. Sometimes the things we worry about the most end up being the least of our worries, but that doesn't have to be the case, or it doesn't always end up being the case. So we always have to be prepared for the worst. And how do we prepare for the worst? Well, we prepare by putting our faith in God and understanding that God's grace is greater, and that the thing that draws us close to God is our faith. And what is most important is our faith for us as individuals to survive in this world. When there's so much evil, there's so much wickedness, there's so much depravity, there's these sexual sinful women who go on TV and act in their promiscuous craziness, and it's deplorable, and it just undermines the values of the family, the traditional family system, and undermines the values of America by putting these crazy ideas of transgenderisms and all these crazy mental issues that are just rampant and being adopted as being commonplace in our society, that are ultimately going to contribute to the destruction of our society. Now, I don't mind if people want to dress up as the opposite sex. That doesn't offend me. But when you start trying to force me to use pronouns that you deem acceptable, I don't go to your place of work or your place of worship or your free speech center and tell you that you have to worship Jesus, or that you have to become a Christian, or that you have to say or not use the Lord's name in vain. I make those suggestions strongly to you, but the minute I try to tell you what to say or tell you what is or is not acceptable to say is the moment that I know I've crossed the boundary between what's good and what's fair. And I think Psalm 14 sums it up best. So why don't we read through that real quick to just talk about what they describe here in the story as the portrait of a sinner. And it says, this is Psalm 14 for those of you who want to pick it up and read for yourselves. It says, "The fool says in his heart, God does not exist. They are corrupt. Their actions are revolting. There is no one who does good. The Lord looks down from heaven on the human race to see if there is one who is wise, one who seeks God. All have turned away. All alike have become corrupt. There is no one who does good, not even one. Will evildoers never understand? They consume my people as they consume bread. They do not call on the Lord. Then they will be filled with terror, for God is with those who are righteous. You sinners frustrate the plans of the afflicted, but the Lord is his refuge. Oh, that Israel's deliverance would come from Zion. When the Lord restores his captive people, Jacob will rejoice, Israel will be glad." So what is that saying? I mean, obviously it's talking about what's going on with the man who does not have God in his heart. It basically says, the first one is that the fool says in his heart, God does not exist. And that's the first way they corrupt the people in the world, with the transgendered and the Communist Manifesto and the separation of church and state, which I'm in favor of separating church and state. But when it becomes a witch hunt against those who worship the Lord, then that's when it's unacceptable. When it becomes tribalist fear against those who worship the Lord, our Savior Jesus Christ, that's when it becomes problematic to me. So I really just want each and every one of you to know that that's being laid out quite plainly, that all who have turned away end up becoming corrupt. And it's just something that the evildoers will never understand. That if you open your heart to God and you're genuine and you reach out to Him every day and you make it a point to worship and praise Him every day and to do what is right and to understand that you're a flawed human being who will make mistakes and will be a sinner, but you will perpetually seek God's favor because you're righteously motivated to worship and praise the Lord in a steadfast way. That's ultimately what separates us from these crazies out there, the Stormy Daniels and the psychos and the David Hoggs and these godless people, in my opinion. So if you guys don't take anything else away from this, please just understand that opening your heart up to the Lord is the only way to be saved in your eternal soul. You may win favor here on earth, but what does that really gain you in the long run? But that's it. I hope you guys definitely take that away with you. I want to say thank you all for watching. If you haven't yet, please click the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications. But that's going to be it for me. I want to say thank you so much for watching. This has been Just Informed Talk. I'm your host, Craig. Godspeed, and God bless you all, Patriots.